Welcome to the St. Thomas More Lynchburg's Homily Podcast. We join Father Jay Biber as he brings his insight and application to the readings for the 21st Sunday in Ordinary Time.
The theme and the examples of reversal, quick shifts and movements are a constant presence in the Scriptures. That whether it's David, the youngest, being chosen as king, God acts outside the expectations. David, the youngest, or Joseph, the one who his brothers try to murder, becoming the second most powerful man in Egypt and treating with mercy his brothers during the famine. Constant stories of the unexpected. You think it's like a movie where you know who the star is, who the good one is, who the bad one is, and it basically, the only question is who's got the best special effects? Because you pretty much know what the conclusions are going to be. Whereas so often in the Scripture stories, both in Old Testament and New, there are these reversals that take place, whether the younger son steals the elder son's birthright. Those kinds of things that sort of say, "Whoa, I thought I knew how this was going to end up, but I realize I'm not quite sure." Now that pattern is established from the very beginning of creation. And so I suspect that, especially as we see it in the New Testament with the New Testament stories today, especially as we see that very same thing, that with this quick reversal at the end, that sort of keeps us humble, like we don't really know how it plays out and why God wills what he does. The New Testament stories I'm thinking of in particular, we've heard frequently over time. You've heard the story of the prodigal son, which really becomes a story, I think, misnamed. Oh, it has truth to it, certainly. But the broad story speaks really of two lost sons. That's the part. How do you figure that? Two lost sons and a prodigal father. Prodigal not in violence. Prodigal not in anger. Prodigal in mercy, in joy, and forgiveness as he runs out the door to greet that son who has treated him as if he were dead. So there we have a story of two sons, one who did everything wrong, the other who did everything right. Both are lost. Now the one who did everything wrong comes back. We don't know what happened, finally, to the one who did everything right, but whose heart obviously was not in the right place, perhaps thought he had it coming to him. Then there's the story I think we heard a few weeks ago of the owner who hired workers at the beginning of the workday and then hired some more at noon and hired some more in mid-afternoon and hired some more at the end of the day. Sent them all out to work. Of course, he pays at the end of the day, he pays those who did the least work first, reverse order. And as we heard, he pays them the full day's wage. And of course, then the rest of us start to think, oh, I know how this is going to end up. But it doesn't. He pays everybody the same wage. And of course, gets the response that I don't know how old we were when we first, maybe 3, I don't know how old. It's not fair. Well, it's not fair. And so there's a new code of fairness somehow here, that these reversals are throughout. It seems to me that they're not only for the scriptural times, but in a sense they speak of a pattern of creation. these patterns from creation which are there, which the time of Christ shines light back on what went before to illuminate. And we go to the earlier, they shine light forward to Christ. And basically, they also shine light, I'd like to think, on our own lives. That we're still there. That this life contains plenty of reversals, giving us the reminder to always be nimble in faith. Today's stories of similar stories of coming to the great pilgrimages, as they come in the prophet Isaiah, the last chapter of the prophet Isaiah, he says, I'm going to take everybody. And of course, if I'm a good Jew, I'm saying, well, wait a minute, you chose us. That's the line. He says, I did. But you're not the last ones. And I'm going to give everybody. This opens to everybody. And then I might say to myself, that's a few too many people for me. No, I'm not sure. But he says, no, everybody. He didn't quite understand before, but I started it out with you, but I always meant it to be for everybody. Think of the similar story of the gospel, Luke's gospel, where he reminds them. He says, you'll stand outside the door. This is the chosen people. You'll stand, or the disciples, the real disciples. You'll stand outside the door. Those who are first will be last, last first. Always the reversal. Why? I'd like to think that in a beautiful way, while we might be seeking, I just want to know I've completed this course. Just give me a diploma. So I don't have to worry about it anymore. But it's meant to be fluid. It never stops. Why? Why these things that never stop, that force us to remain nimble, light on our feet? Sense, because I think we're works in progress, aren't we? And that the eyes with which God sees us are those eyes which made us into his image and likeness. We may want to compromise far short of that, but his eyes see us that way. And what will it take to draw us from complacency, custom? What will it take to draw us where I've made all my compromises, to undo them and to be open to that divinization, that sharing in the divine life, which is our goal, and which through his eyes, I suspect that's how he sees us. How does he get us there? The story of the early Christian community, to which the letter of Hebrews is written, maybe in the year 80 or 90, something like that. This is a community in persecution, but notice, even in persecution, he reframes the understanding of what's going on with them, so it becomes something positive. Here we're beginning high school now and college, and of course, the sports themselves speak of the discipline. He talks about a father disciplining the son, a parent disciplining the child. But I'm thinking, if you're a swimmer, or if you're a football player, or if you're a volleyball player, you know something about discipline. You know something about what that does, because it brings out of the body what was always there, but which had never been challenged far enough. It brings out of the body its greatness through the discipline. So with the Spirit. Will we let God through these gifts, regular gifts of transformation, will we let him accomplish the work in us that he wishes?
Thank you for tuning in to the St. Thomas More Lynchburg's Homily Podcast. For the daily reading and to learn more about the community of St. Thomas More, please visit our website at www.stmva.org. If you were blessed by our podcast today, please give it a like, a kind review, and share it with a friend. God bless.